So you guys get to hear a whole section of the course without even purchasing it. And we are focused on our 2026 strategic planner. We have a lot of bonuses. We went through and we listened to you and added not only a goal tracker, but like a weekly planner that you could print and use to stay on track. But we also added our accountability plan and our top 3 strategies we think agencies need to focus on as this market shifts. But today you're going to hear a whole section on accountability and the need to hold people accountable, how to hold people accountable, why we don't hold people accountable. So if you like what you hear, make sure you get our strategic planner because it will game change your agency to have a successful 2026. Every agency needs a good plan right now. And without it, you're just going to be spending a lot of resources. So let's hop in and hear all about accountability and how it relates to your strategic plan. It's that time of year. We're all sitting down trying to create our 2026 or whatever year you might be watching this podcast, strategic plans. And one of the things that we find I encounter and my team encounters a lot with agencies that we work with is the concept of accountability. And in our bonus section, this is a brand new section that we have, we wanted to help agencies hold team members accountable. Now, accountability has been difficult the past several years. We went from COVID to a hard market, but I firmly believe we're all getting back to that place that we want to be, where holding people accountable becomes more normal and more natural. I can tell you this, people like discipline, they like structure, and without it, we often see the worst of people. So if you're struggling with some team members, you have to ask yourself, why is this considered a recommendation, not a requirement? The question I always ask agency owners routinely is this one question. When would this behavior become insubordination? Is it if they do it 376 times? Well, great, let's start the timer. But so often, because we're not operating with a good game plan, with infrastructure, I find leaders take it to themselves personally, and they look at what they're not doing versus I look at it like, well, we've asked the people to do it, now we need to hold them accountable. And in fact, we often find many agencies don't love this part. So they think, well, they're adults, they're licensed agents, they should just do it. But when we go back and look at the data and we audit, we find that people are not. And it can become this very vicious loop that is very difficult to break. So if you're a team member and for 5 years, maybe their manager or the owner has come in and said, let's do this, let's do that. And then that kind of just goes away, or there's no documentation, there's no formal rollout, there's no check-ins, there's no formal training, then everybody just keeps doing what they're doing and everyone gets frustrated. Or some people do it, some sort of do it, and some people just say, forget about it. And what ends up happening is you wear the leader down. And so now all of a sudden, anything that comes up is sort of like an optional scenario, which is not what I think we truly are looking for. So we take that and then we look at the leader side, where the leader might go into a meeting, tell people what's going to happen, but there's no follow-up. There's nothing written. There's no breaking down of training, right? And even in my own company, we've recently invested in a new learning management system that we'll be rolling out to all of our consulting clients and school and store clients. This is going to be awesome, by the way. There's like micro content, like how to handle upset customer, how to explain RCE, like all this whole video library of like quick hits that people need to do their job effectively. But we had a whole structure when there was updates called communication alerts. And I would find that people would glance at them, but not really embrace them. So with our new learning management system, anything that we roll out that's substantial, we do a communication alert and then enforce them by taking video training with quizzes, homework, etc. Because it is one thing to glance at a piece of paper. It is another thing to engage with it. And I think, there's room on both sides. But for both parties, there's room for improvement, right? And when we start to think about accountability, for many, I think leaders, we jump into that, well, if I hold them accountable, they might leave. And I'm like, hold on. We're going to leave a job that somebody's been at for maybe 10, 15 years, because we start asking them to document a certain way, or because we're asking them to come to work on time, or because we're asking them to utilize a CRM tool. Like, when did our standards become so low that this is acceptable? And that's the question I ask a lot of agency owners is like, why is that acceptable? And a lot of them just kind of look, and then I think the light bulb goes off like, well, it shouldn't be. But I'm scared because my team tells me how burned out they are, how overwhelmed, how stressed they are. And I feel like if I put one more thing on them, they all might break or leave. But the reality is a lot of the insubordination, a lot of the lack of accountability is actually causing more chaos, causing more time, causing more wheels to be spun. And I struggle with that pretty dramatically because, to me, team members come in, they get a paycheck, so they need to follow the directive. And when they don't, and I get it, there's times where we could be clearer, but those are minimal. There needs to be a consequence. And so the next question I ask over, when is it insubordination? What does accountability look like? What is the consequence here for doing nothing? And it's like, there is none. We give everybody bonuses, time off, jeans days, bring in lunch, buy them puppies, and I'm just like, so wait a second. So you're giving everybody bonuses, but they're not following what they should be doing. And the answer to that is yes. And I'm like, okay, no. Okay, we need consequences. But this is very foreign to a lot of leaders to find consequences. And so as you build your strategic plan, I want to give you some hope of how you can structure this. So we have our downloadable just steps to follow. And I think sometimes for leaders, having steps that, you're not crazy is good. But if I can give you all my biggest strategies that you'll find in the strategic planner for accountability include, the first one is, setting up for this year, having very clear expectations. Write it down. How we do it is we have a whole strategic plan for the company, for each team, and then what that means to each individual. We actually update everybody's job descriptions in January to reflect like how you support this vision and mission for the year. And in it is all the clarity. Then we have what we call Spirit Week, which for a whole week in January, we launch our strategic plan. So this looks like a company-wide meeting. And the way we're all virtual, so you could condense this into one day. For us, it's a little bit different. But we have one day where we do a kickoff. And it's at our Christmas party, we do a year in review. So now we're in the new year. And I'm like, we don't look back. We started at 0 on January 1. We got to get to it. We start with just like, okay, here's an analysis of where we are. And here's the vision for where we're going. So I paint a very clear picture of the vision, the rewards, how we're going to have fun, what the consequences are. Day 2, we usually have a motivational speaker that supports that. So now I'm connecting the dots, right? From here's my vision for the year. Oh, and by the way, I should say we have a theme. We get shirts. We have swag bags. We make it fun so that people don't just look at it like another thing, no, this is what our team is doing. This is how we're going to go win the Super Bowl this year. Then day 3, we generally go ahead and have each team meet and they go over the team's strategic plan. So this is what the team is going to focus on. This is how that team supports the bigger mission. And then usually day 4, we end up with kind of a fun day. Sometimes just to be at New Year's Falls, it gets a little choppy. So it's usually 4 days. But there's like quizzes on the plan, games, prizes, but it's all on the plan for the year. And then every all hands on deck meeting every month, we check in on the plan, on their strategic plans. They have it. They have to check in. Like it's a whole thing. We have, the brand ambassador of the year. Like this year was growth. So we have our growth guru. So anybody can give anybody a gift card for seeing growth. But we have a whole succinct. So there's no excuses that you didn't know. So now the second part of this is, okay, when somebody is off track, what do we do? And the first step is we have one-on-ones. So if your agency is not having one-on-ones with each team member, you're crazy. I'm just going to say that. And I know some of you might be driving thinking, how am I ever going to fit in all these one-on-ones? Well, you should have no more than 6 to 8 direct reports. I say this right now, I am slightly hypocritical because we hired a bunch of people. So I'm in there as we're reorganizing and I have more than that. And I can tell you it is too much. You cannot do it well and maintain other responsibilities. So think about 6 to 8. If not, you might need to have some team leads. You might need to build some new roles in your agency. But at that point in time, when we start to see someone off track, we already have the one-on-ones. We can address it. And on those one-on-ones, we pull up data. That is a huge part of what we do at APP. We have a 4-person reporting team. Like, I need the data to see what's happening in your agency. And it's funny, the people who don't click the link on the data are the ones that don't want to know. And I'm like, no, you have to know. It's like weighing yourself after Christmas. Let's just know so we can do better. So, on those one-on-ones, you can address it. If it continues after that, now it's time for what we call a verbal warning. This is outside the 1-1. This is sit down. Like, let's have a chat. Here's my facts. I'm bringing this to your attention because the next step is going to be a written warning, and you don't want that, and I don't want that. So now we are clear. We have a recap email that gets sent out. Again, clarity is kind. Documentation is kind. Okay, perfect. This continues. Now you're getting me mad. Okay, like I've been kind, I've been clear. We've talked about this. I've told you you're going to hit a boundary. It's not going to be good. And now we're in that spot. So now it's a written warning. And the next step would be a performance improvement plan and then potentially termination. But when it gets to that place, you as the agency principal, owner, leader can start recruiting and hiring somebody else to come join you. I think the idea of why we cringe on accountability is it's not been done. So for maybe 5 years, decade, previous owners, nobody's had this level of detail. So it feels pretty crunchy to have it, right? And then be like, well, what are we, we've never done this way. So you sort of assume that everybody's going to act out like a teenager, and they may. But I also like to say, if they're going to leave, again, because we want them to document the system, then they shouldn't be there to begin with. Like, you're putting up with less than ideal team members. You deserve Navy SEAL Team 6. That's what I tell my team all the time. We deserve Navy SEAL Team 6. We will go find these people. We will pay them. But we are not putting up with anything less out of desperation. And again, as a leader, my job is to find the right people. My job is to make sure we're adequately staffed. My job is to have that strategy. And even if that takes a little bit longer, I also have to be creative and not just think like, well, they must fit into this little box. Maybe they don't. Maybe there's a leader on my team that needs to be poured into. That's why we also do coaching plans every year to say, where do you want to go? How can we invest in you? But that whole acting out thing, or I think it actually stems more from guilt, like some guilt of I created this, but that's why a new year, fresh start, move forward. And, the people who really want to arm wrestle with you have to recognize something. Like, there is hierarchy in businesses. And albeit I wish insurance agencies delved more into hierarchy and had more respect for the different roles out there, because I just think it would make such a big difference in everybody's day if we could get there. It's kind of like hitting the reset button. So if you've been listening to this podcast feeling like that's how we've operated it, there's not been much accountability. Well, now's the time. You're going into a new year, fresh start, reset those expectations, show up differently. You might be surprised how many people say thank you, and you might be surprised how those wrong people depart, and you're not super sad. You're not sad. So check out our accountability plan, but my final message is don't be scared of accountability. Be scared of the fact that, the people that are there might leave without it, the good ones. Be scared of the fact that without it, how do we have a business, right? Like, even daycares have accountability. Schools have accountability. So why wouldn't we have it in our insurance agency? So that's our message. Hope you've enjoyed it. And make sure you hop on and get that strategic planner. You won't go wrong. You need a good, solid plan. This market is shifting wildly. We have staffing issues. There's so much to address, and the strategic planner will help you get there. Thanks, everybody. All right, welcome back. So hopefully that lesson, that podcast, that video, however you're watching it, didn't have too many icky points where you had to look in the mirror and think, oh, cringe, this could be me. It's been everybody. But the point is that you can use this opportunity as next year to do things differently. And it's such a great opportunity to set the new tone, set a new stage. It's a new year. The expectation as people have is that we will be doing things differently. So utilize it as a way to show up and resonate accountability. It might be a little sticky, it might be a little icky, but I promise you, if you take the right approach to it, you will get there. And the strategic planner can help you. So hop on over to our website, check out the notes, get the strategic planner. Every agency needs a good game plan this next year because this market has been different. And we need to see, as we see our way out of it, a great plan to sustain. We'll see you soon.